that, don't we? We might as well kick off, I think. So apologies for having to delay the call from last week and for the late notification of the dial-in details. And Ramya, thank you for bearing with the 8:30 dial-in. Just as folks are chatting, again, I'm recording the session, so if these sessions continue to prove useful, we'll continue to have them. If a sort of another format proves more useful, we can easily switch to that. But just as anybody starts to speak, if you can just introduce yourself the first time you speak, and then just say your name for any sort of introduction after that, and we'll just see how we go with people interrupting in gaps in conversation, and if we need to sort of interrupting via chat or something like that, we can switch to that. So apologies, I again also didn't send around the agenda, which I've just got in front of me here, which I'll just chat through and then make that public via the notes, if that's okay at the end. Ramya, did you want to, I don't know that we've got Rebecca on the call, but talk about the VS Code release that you've done with the plugin and the work you've been doing with Rebecca on that side of things?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, I'm Ramya. I work on the VS Code team and on the Go plugin. So the update from my side is that I did release an update last week. What it does is if you're using modules, it figures out that you're using modules and prompts you to install the two forks of Go Code and Go Def, and they are named with the suffix Go Mod, so that it doesn't conflict with the normal tooling because we still have performance issues with the forks. And from that point onwards, it's smooth sailing as far as auto-completion and go-to-definition features are concerned. Zach also made sure that Go Get Doc is supported as well. So for people who are using Go Get Doc, I just show a prompt so that they can update their version of Go Get Doc so that they get the good features as well. Mm-hmm. So that, along with a couple of other things, I think at the moment, from the incoming issues that I've been seeing, there's only one issue that has a problem with auto-completion. So Rebecca is engaging with the user over there. And other than that, the only feedback I've gotten is that things are a little slow, which we knew to expect. So I'm responding with Ian's standard answers of, oh, it uses Go list behind the scenes, and as and when that improves, your tool will improve too. So that's my canned answer at the moment. Apart from that, I'm tracking other issues specific to the plugin related to modules with the label Go Modules. So if anybody is interested, they can go to the repo and check that. And I'm maintaining a wiki page as well that maintains that tracks the status of the module support. For example, right now I have a beta version out that has the code coverage support in it, which was broken earlier. Thanks to Joe. Is Joe here? That's okay. So we chatted over the weekend and I got some ideas. So the issue there was that the cover profile has the file paths with respect to the import paths of the package. But now with Go modules, import path is not necessarily in the file path, so it's difficult for the editor to apply the coverage. So we went back and forth and settled down on a few ideas. So that's now available in the beta version. All in all, there is progress, so that is good. Everybody's just looking at Go list to be faster. And that's all I have.
Ramya, that's excellent. Is there any, so there's just a number of great things in that list there. You mentioned that you're tracking a number of issues to do with modules. Are there any particular issues you want to bring up here that are just worth flagging? Or maybe you've covered things offline with Rebecca, Ian and co, so just say either way.
So a couple of them tie directly back to the tooling support. For example, Go Type and Go Doc still don't have the support for modules. Mm-hmm. So some people who are like logging issues, I'm like, oh, just wait, we're still working on it, and so on and so forth. Other than that, there's nothing specific. I mean, the one issue I did talk about completion, we're still not sure why the user is not getting completion. So Rebecca is engaging. I don't have any updates there at the moment.
Okay, cool. Hey, Marwan.
I'm going to jump in and say similar to that. Okay, I'm Marwan, and I work at the New York Times, and I use VS Code and everything else. But because the code completion part I noticed is that it doesn't happen when you first import something, but once you save and try again, the code completion works. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that is true. I think it's been almost a week since I tried that, so it's somewhere back of my mind. But thanks, Marwan. That is true. So that initially would give the impression to people that things are not working, especially if they are writing the code from scratch. If they're already editing an existing code base, then they wouldn't have the problem because the import is already there, it is already used, you just like continue working. But otherwise, the first impression, as soon as you say you add an import and you start typing, that doesn't work. So for now, what I'm telling people is import, use it in a dummy way, like for example, foo.bar. That is, obviously it'll be flagged as an error, but after that point, the package is deemed as imported, and then the completions work.
Is this because the file is not written to disk, and hence GoList doesn't see it? And I wonder, therefore, whether this just ties in with the work that Michael's been doing on overlays. I saw something in the works on that sort of things. I don't know whether Ian, Brian, it's just worth chipping in.
I don't think it's just because of the disk save, because I did try import the package, save the file, and then try it. It still doesn't work. It has to be used. So I found that strange. The package has to be used once.
That sounds like, I don't know, Ian, Brian, whether there's anything that you want to jump in on there, or whether we just take that one offline, because it sounds like there might be two issues there. If it's not written to disk, I can definitely guess there would be an issue. Yes. And that's where the overlays side of things would come in. But if it has been written to disk, I would have expected that to work. But
yeah, the first version of overlays also won't fix that, because it still doesn't affect what GoList returns.
Got it.
We'd like to fix that up later, but not in the initial version.
Yeah. Fine. So okay, we can't really expect the non or the sort of the buffered versions of files the direction is always going to be to say to somebody, save the file before trying to do anything.
In the very short term, yes, that will definitely be the case.
Okay.
GoList is below the overlay system, so it
yeah.
will never see it. We think we can fix it up inside the thing that drives GoList, but we won't be doing that straight away. But it will be the reason we're kind of delaying on that is because it's not an API change to make that work. It's a strictly better experience without any API changes. So hopefully it will come in the future.
Cool. Okay.
I did log that issue in Rebecca's fork of Go code, so there's an issue tracking that.
Awesome.
I think somebody found an issue in Ian, your fork of GoDef as well. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, I saw it. The only reason I haven't accepted the pull request is because I'm busy trying to write lots of tests for GoDef, and I'd like to actually see a test file before I accept the patch that fixes it.
Okay, yeah. So just to get everybody else on the same page. So one issue that was found was if you have a comment on top of the package declaration, after that there's an offset issue, because of which GoDef always gives the wrong lines definition.
Yes, I have fixed that actually. I'm Zach. I work on Go Plus for Atom and also the Go Get Doc tool. I fixed that there. If you want, I can point you to the fix. You basically look at the comments in the file and you skip anything that starts before the file start and you add that offset and then you're back on track.
Yeah, the person who logged the issue has submitted a PR like Ian said, I think he's waiting on a test case for that. So I think we can just mention that and they'll be happy to add it.
Cool. Okay. I think that covers Go Code and GoDef as well. As part of that, any update on Go imports, Ian, that you wanted to share? I can't quite recall if Heshi had sent any CLs in the meantime since last call.
Heshi's sitting with me, so he can talk. The microphone.
Oh, right. Technology.
Hi,
hi. So it's gone through a couple of iterations. I think we're getting close to something that might work, but right now I've mostly been doing preparatory work that doesn't actually get modules working yet. I'm hopeful that we'll have something in the next week, but it's hard to promise because I don't know what surprises are coming.
That sounds great. The next thing on my list was here. Thanks, Ashi. The next thing on my list was an update on Go Get Doc, but Zach, I think we've already covered that off in Ramia's update as well. Okay, is there anything else on the tools side of things? So that's like sort of firefighting the existing tools. Anything that anybody wants to bring up? There hasn't been anything that's sort of particularly come up that I've seen.
Yeah, I guess the only question I've got is if anybody knows of any tools that people are like really urgently needing that don't work yet, so that I can prioritize doing those next.
Ramya, I guess we'd be looking to you, Zach, Joe, and Fatih for any sort of the main guidance on that.
I think Go Doc and Go Types is what I've seen in the issues that are incoming. So Go Doc gives us the whole documentation thing. Of course, Go Get Doc solves the problem for us, but then I'll have to prompt everyone to install Go Get Doc instead, which is not the default. Go Doc support would be good. And then I think Go Type, there is a fork of Go Type called as Go Type Live, which gives you live, type checks. I reached out to the person who's maintaining that, and they're like, well, this is just a fork of Go Type. So as and when they'll fix Go Type, I can fix this. So Go Doc and Go Type at the moment.
Okay.
How's Go Doc coming along, Ian?
Kind of not.
It's a beast, right?
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of planning because it does too many jobs in one binary, and we're deeply unhappy with it as a general purpose tool anyway. It might be best to just switch the default to Go Get Doc for now.
Is that, if that's feasible, Ramya, does that sort of solve things from your perspective? Oh,
sorry, what Go imports?
No, this was on Go Doc.
Yeah, I think Go Doc is going to be quite a long time before it's working again, if ever.
that is fine. So like if I have that kind of a statement, then I can work off of that. So any incoming issues, I can always point them that, hey, use Go Get Doc instead, and it should be okay. That's not a problem. But knowing the status helps.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Fatih apologizes. He's at some sort of offsite in New York, so he's not able to join. He didn't have any specific points he wanted to bring up. I didn't see a Vim Go release either. He didn't send through any notes on that. Didn't have any specific points to bring up. So, hey, Ramya.
In the beginning, when I was working on integrating Rebecca's fork of Go code, Fateh was also trying to do the same, but I think the last we heard from him was it doesn't work most of the time. And then I mentioned that, hey, it might be the case that you're working on from scratch, and that's why you need to save and use it once, and then you have to use it. And then I didn't hear back from him, so that's the last known status from his side, which is at least 2 weeks old.
That could well be sort of a larger issue in Vim, because Vim is slightly more than save is more than a Control S in Vim. So it's not something that you naturally do as sort of like a reflex action as you might do in something like VS Code, for example. I just wonder whether there's, I might just pick that up with him offline afterwards to see if there's any, because that will just be annoying to have to save a file each time if you're looking for completions or go-to-def or whatever. So, okay, thanks, Ramya. The next thing I had on the list was releasing, in quotes, of Go packages, i.e. removing that banner. That was something that Michael said that, hey, Michael.
Hello.
The technology there. You've got a turntable for the laptop by the looks of things, which
yeah, we've struggled to dial into this meeting. So
sorry,
I'm glad we're so Go packages. I think the only remaining thing that I'd like to take, or there are 2 remaining things I'd like to take care of before we do that, which I think we can do by the end of the week. One is this new contains syntax, which is going to be called file equals because of reasons. And 2 is just like going through and like updating the docs and mentioning like what we plan to do and all that. And I think everything else is like going to be stable. We just changed parse file yesterday, so hopefully no one broke by that. It's not, yeah, so end of this week, we'll remove the thing. And I don't think that'll mean that it's like completely frozen, but I think that'll mean like we'll be extremely careful if we make any future changes. And we're pretty happy with where it is, and we want people to start using it.
Yeah, I think the communication generally has been pretty good in that some people have been put off by the headline that's in there. But then with a quick pointer to, oh, just come and join golang-tools group and this group on Slack, there's plenty of people using it. This is just a temporary thing. They then just crack on and start using it. So I don't think it's been stopping people from using it at all. So maybe it's just like a superficial thing at the top that can just tidy it up a bit. That sounds great. Anything else you wanted to bring up on the Go packages side of things?
I guess, if there are any big blockers or showstoppers, we really want people to communicate those to us. But other than that, I think like it's getting there.
The one that has been one or two people pinged me, Roger and Daniel pinged me to so that we can try and talk about that maybe now or take it offline.
Yeah,
is something we touched on last time, and apologies, I had a to-do to create an issue about this, and that's the loading of all files with all dependencies, regardless of build constraints of any sort. Which is our favorite sort of beast, in that makes it harder for some tools to actually use Go packages if actually you need to have specified a goose, scorch, and build tags, for example.
Right. I mean, that is the sort of thing that I think it's pretty much impossible to do with Go packages. So sort of like we discussed last time, if anyone has some like brilliant idea that we haven't thought of, we'd love to hear it, some way of like squaring the circle. But
yeah, I remember that was how we concluded it last time. So I'm just wondering whether actually we should, Roger, Daniel, I don't know whether there's any ideas that you have that's worth bringing up now, or whether this is just something we end up taking offline to try and smash through a few ideas on an issue.
So I think from my point of view, I wonder whether maybe Go packages is trying a bit too much to be all things to all people. And like it's trying to be, is the lowest level tool that we've got to talk about Go packages. And it does, it rolls in types and, type checking and syntax checking and all that stuff as well. But that's not always the way that you want to look at Go programs. And maybe there's room for something at a lower level, because Go build didn't care about, syntax. It just cared about dependencies. And maybe it's possible to do something, because for example, the version checking tool that I've got, it's quite important that it checks all tags, that it checks all, because what it does is it checks all dependencies that are not using something that would be updated by the version by the version change. So you can avoid forking versions. And this, that was historically that was possible, but now it's not, and so you might end up accidentally forking versions when you didn't mean to.
I guess Go grep is another example here, Daniel.
Yeah, Go grep is a classic example too.
I think we can certainly recognize there are a lot of things that you would like to do that range over all possible configurations, and just the fact that we're aiming for type information in Go packages as a primary feature of this thing means that you have to pick one configuration, and we've neglected the sort of the use cases you're talking about. I agree there's a missing piece here, but I don't think Go packages is really going to help you very much.
Yeah, that's the problem is that we had Go build before, and all the type stuffing stuff led on top of Go build, and now we don't have Go build anymore. So so I guess we could build something entirely independent of Go packages, or try and layer Go packages on something.
So I didn't actually know who was talking there. Sorry, the voice came from off screen. So
yeah, that was Alan.
Oh, hi, Alan. Hi.
Yeah.
So what, Ian, Alan, Michael, what's the thinking here? Is that it's sort of along the lines of Roger's suggestion there? Is this something that, somebody just sort of hacks on the side here? Or Ian, when we were at GopherCon, there was some chat about there being a lower level package that
Yeah, I'm not even sure it's lower level. I think it's fundamentally separate. I think it is not possible to examine all source files in a build system independent way, which means it's fundamentally nothing to do with Go packages. So we may need a separate package that looks at Go path or module layout files and returns them all, but I don't think it's Go packages, and I don't think it should be below or above it.
Yeah, because like, you know, that's like one of the other goals of Go packages is to be like friendly with other build systems. And I don't know that this thing that we want to do to show all files and all configurations is possible to even be compatible with all build systems. It's certainly not compatible with Blaze. So it might be, or yeah, Bazel's even worse. So you know, if we might.
Can you outline quite how, because I don't know anything about Bazel. For why, how is it?
Yeah. So I'll speak from a Blaze perspective because I understand how our rules in Blaze work. But the idea is this: so when you're compiling something, Blaze has a number of rules which are like essentially like programs that it runs to decide like what sources are in like a binary or a test or something. And those rules, the logic that it runs depend on the configuration, and the sources could appear anywhere in the tree. So in general, it's impossible for us to know what all the branches that code is going to take are, depending on all the configurations that can exist. Would that be an accurate summary?
Yeah.
So you don't have things like go build tags in that kind of scenario.
Oh, it's fun because we have build tags, but the build tags apply on top of the configuration. Whole mess. Yeah, they won't help. Yeah, it just sucks. It's complicated and it just won't work.
I think the point is that a package in the Go sense is configuration specific. So what you're asking for is a directory of files, not a package of files. And directories are essentially irrelevant in build systems that don't use directory layout to control what goes in what package. You see what I mean? So there is no same way to say, I want this blob of files that makes sense if you're not dealing with packages and you're not dealing with a common build system.
But you could imagine, Brian Mills here, also at Google. So you could imagine, say, a configuration for Go packages that says, this is the set of configurations that I want to enumerate, and I want to get the union of all of the files across these configurations. And for the Go tool, that would be like all of the Go OS, Go Arch combinations, and for Blaze and Bazel, that might be something else.
Yes, and that's a tool we could write on top of Go packages easily, but it wouldn't be able to say, I know automatically all possible configurations. If you supplied it with a set of configurations, it could merge them all together for you.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to do that to any degree efficiently on top of Go packages?
Very inefficient,
No,
I think.
it would be one call to Go list for each configuration.
Yeah, and one entire type check of the entire universe for each type.
You'd do it in non-typed code. There's no way you'd run the type checker while trying to do it.
You wouldn't want the type checker in that mode anyway, because you'd end up with duplicate configurations and conflicting definitions.
You also have to be aware that the resulting import graph is now cyclic, which we promise at the moment that it's not.
So it doesn't sound like there's an immediate answer there. I'm not looking to cut this conversation short, but it sort of sounds like we could keep talking about this for a few minutes, and maybe I should actually just create that issue as promised, and I'll do that straight after the call this time. And we can just center discussion around that as to what feels like the right thing to do. If it is just creating, dare I say, sort of a tool/package outside of Xtools as a starting point to just find our way with it a bit, and then migrating that into Xtools, Roger, dare I say, sort of along the lines of what GoHack is doing at the moment, just to sort of feel out what kind of works. And maybe with a sort of a tip of the cap to Blaze, Bazel, if there's anything that we can or want to do on that side of things as well. We'll have to get a bit of input there. Sorry, Roger. Yeah.
I just say one thing, that what does the Go tool itself do? Because if you install a package or you build a package, does it only treat dependencies that are part of the current set of build tags?
the whole build is GoList effectively does a partial build in order to generate export data files and CGO for files, test mains, that kind of thing, and it has to pick a specific configuration to do that. So GoList is effectively build to get this metadata, and both are specific to a single configuration.
Yes, there are some commands in the Go tool that are configuration neutral. Specifically in the modules area, you can like collect the dependencies for all configurations by ignoring the alt tags. But
that's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
it's not list and it's not build or any of its friends. It's specifically some of the module ones are able to do this.
Yeah, that's precisely what I was thinking about. That's what I'd like to be able to do.
Yeah.
Because
Cool.
I am aware that the Go tool does that, and like
Yeah.
that's just the sort of area that other tools I'm thinking of live in, I think.
Cool. Well, I'll create that issue as promised then, and we can just continue discussion there. We can sort of try and kick it forward a bit via that issue, or if anybody wants to take a lead on it, please do. I guess that kind of sort of brings us on to the next point, which is module boundaries in Xtools. Brian, Ian, anything to update on that side of things? A bit of discussion and a bit of laughter by the sounds of things.
No, we've not got anywhere with that really. We've discussed it a bit, but we haven't actually come to any conclusions.
Yeah, so I think there are 3 sort of central issues right now. I may be miscounting, but let me try and enumerate them, and I hope there are 3. So one is that right now we don't have a lot of clarity on like which packages and which binaries are sort of V1 type stable as opposed to V0 type unstable, and the gray area in between of things that are de facto stable but don't have an explicit guarantee as such. So that's one issue. A second issue is you can talk to Hannah Kim in New York, and she will be glad to point out many, many issues with the Go module support in multi-module mode. So I'm kind of triaging the big pile of bugs that she's reported with lots of detail on that. And so we have a number of issues to work out to make multi-module repos work smoothly. And on top of that, we have some issues that we need to work out to make them work reliably. And so we kind of hesitate to commit to any particular module structure until we know exactly how painful multi-module repos are going to be long-term as opposed to short-term.
By the way.
What?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Aha.
Thank you.
I kind of figured you were. And thanks for all the bug reports.
Yeah, and I think we should sit and then fix all the bugs. Anyway, so like just the major challenge currently I have is basically the motivation. So basically this multi-module or like the module actually that actually complicates all the development cycle and release cycle. So what is the benefit of having the module in X2? Like if somebody gives me the motivation, then I can work a little bit harder.
I think one of the thanks, Hannah. One of the motivations we had was the ability for editors and the like to be able to, dare I say, pin to a specific version of a tool that exists within Xtools, for example. And so that's one thing. But on the one hand, on the other hand, is if
tools, the command line tools, or the libraries.
The actual command line tools, the main packages themselves. So be able to pin to those, and then also to not effectively be, let's say, for example, there's a breaking change somewhere else within Xtools, or let's just say that moves. Exactly, somewhere that happens. If everything is part of one module as well, then the major version for everything moves forward, irrespective of the fact there may not have been a breaking change for that main package that we're talking about here, whatever it might be.
So here we are talking about the backward incompatible changes, and that is actually the story after the version n equals larger than 0, right? So like the most important thing is we should decide which packages and which command line tools are ready to go beyond the version 0. Because, for example, Go packages we are still developing, right? And even GoDoc or whatever, like the tools that we've been using for forever, like I don't know, are we ready? No. So when should we decide that we can actually change the major version?
So
and
some of them are junk, I would say. They're just things that are.
Yeah, some of the junks
Yeah.
we can delete.
Right.
For like some of the but like some of the tools that we currently use, are they V1 worthy?
I don't think we'd have to look on case by case, but I think the GoDoc is not a good example. It's a complicated thing. We don't want to have any commitments about the interfaces
Yeah.
on.
So
I think the other thing is we want to structure the commands so they live underneath the packages, because
that I have a different argument.
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but anyway, so like soon I will share some brief doc. Like I am switching back and forth in between all the ideas, but I think at this stage the only thing that I can share is just the requirement and what is the challenge. That's it. I try to go with all this module structure, and then everything is unsatisfactory. So, yeah. So. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you, Hannah. I guess, is there anything that comes out of those discussions that you've been having as advice for people, other people? So looking at XTools and what you're going through there, is there any sort of advice that comes out of this, or is it even too early to sort of come up with, dare I say, advice for other, whether it's monorepo maintainers or just repo maintainers in general?
I think the only advice we've got is that it's a bit too early to do multi-module repositories. Don't. Not yet.
Cool. Okay. Sorry, go on.
I think sort of along those same lines, I think the general advice is don't try and do something more complicated than a single module repository unless you have a really compelling use case for it. And try not to have, if you do have multiple repos, try not to have a repo that is kind of a mishmash of stable things and unstable things in tools and libraries. And XTools is kind of a special case because it has such a diverse set of tools.
But to say that in a few words, don't do your software organization the way we've done XTools.
So it sounds like Hannah's document is, to call it a document, maybe, I don't want to sort of misquote you there, Hannah, will just sort of give a bit of a reflection on the structure of XTools, which perhaps will end up being sort of like guidance on how not to do things. And the suggestions that come out the other side actually might sort of end up being advice, if I can couch it in those terms, for people on how to structure their monorepos or multi-module repos. Okay, and as far as I've seen, the advice that's being given in the module Slack channel and elsewhere is don't create multiple modules unless you really need those separate versioning units, and just be really sure that you need them before you do, because there has sort of been a bit of an approach to say, oh, I'm just going to create modules left, right, and center here. And yeah, there has been some fairly good advice to the contrary on that. So. Cool. Okay. Anything? I don't think there's anything else on that. If there is, please shout. Anything, Alan? Given that you, oh, sorry, Marlon.
Oh, sorry. I can't see the document, but if there is anything else, I have just a completely random question, so I don't want to interrupt.
Okay, cool. Can I tag you on at the end of all of this? If that's all right. Yeah. Given we've got Alan on the call, Alan, is there anything you want to talk about Go analysis?
You've probably seen a flurry of CLs and moving all of the vet checks, so they live in standalone packages. The idea being that you'll be able to build your own tools that use sort of an a la carte menu of existing vet checks plus your own checkers, this stuff should make its way into the Go vet subcommand of the Go build system any week now. I'm surprised nobody's had more opinions about this. Frankly, I thought static analysis tools are one of those things where everyone loves to point out mistakes that I've made, and it's been very quiet. So maybe that's either a sign that no one cares, or that maybe them doing something uncontroversial.
I've been meaning to get around to having a look at it. Sorry.
what I would say is do please try to build a tool using the new API. So you should just be able to write a checker. There's a one-line main function that turns that checker package into an actual application, and then it'll run with Go packages in your workspace. So try it out, have a play with it, see if it works for you. I will probably within this week send out a request for people to hammer on the new GoVet, which will be using all this new machinery before we run in GoVet.
Alan, we just lost you there, actually. Certainly, I lost you, where you said you'll be sending out a CL shortly to ask people to hammer on the new vet, and then we just lost you. So
within this week, I hope that when you type GoVet, at least there'll be a few days when it's an optional feature, but then it'll be the only way in which to run the vet command in a Go workspace. I want people to play with it and make sure that it hasn't regressed, because it's a lot of code. It's like 15,000 lines of code. There's been a bunch of changes. I hope nothing is broken, but I would like other people to confirm that it still works for them. So that'll be in a week or so, I think. Amazing.
Well, Daniel's on the call as well, so I just sort of expect him to be smiling at this point about changes about GoVet, but so we'll look forward to that. I'm going to try out Go Analysis. I've got 2 or 3 checkers that I need to write, so it's on my list. Dominic apologized; he's not able to make the call. I don't know whether you've been in contact with him about Go Analysis at all. That might just be a connection worth making. If
I've CC'd him on the design of various CLs, but I haven't heard anything back from him. Which is funny because he's obviously done more in this space than anybody else, and he hasn't told me how I'm doing it all wrong. So again, I'm assuming he's just late getting around to it, and that the criticism will come eventually.
We'll see. It's kind of good to see if we can prompt him into taking a look at it sooner rather than later, if he's got bandwidth to be able to do that. So I'll perhaps make mention of that in the notes afterwards, in case there's any feedback he has got and just hasn't managed to give yet. So
great, thanks.
Hey, Ramya.
I have a silly question. When we say Go Analysis tools, we actually mean a couple of tools that do the analysis and not really a tool called Go Analysis, right?
Oh, yes. Go Analysis is the name of the API. The idea is that you can now have many checkers that all implement the standard API, and there'll be a few tools that actually kind of drive those checkers. And so the old vet tool will be one of those drivers, and you will invoke it through GoVet. There'll be a standalone program that behaves very similarly, but doesn't need the build system. It just uses the Go Packages API to find package metadata.
Okay.
And then there'll be other variations of that as needed. For example, at Google, we have a system integrated into our code review that runs these checks, and that's yet a third driver, and maybe other cases where you need to build one. But that's sort of an esoteric, like an advanced use. Mostly you just write checkers that satisfy this fairly straightforward interface, and then it's easy to build a tool that runs that checker as well.
Okay, because VS Code does use GoVet on each file save, but I'm guessing our users would be seeing them only when you release the next version of Go, because not everybody uses Go from source.
That's right, but I would like if you could try it out in advance of that and tell us that everything continues to work. Hopefully users of GoVet shouldn't notice any difference at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can reach out to a few people who use Go from source. I don't think I'm going to be using Go from source anytime soon.
And then longer term, the LSP will directly run the analysis API itself, so we won't have to shell out the GoVet at all.
That's the next update, unless there's anything else. Thanks, Alan. Unless there's anything else on Go Analysis. The next thing I've got is Go List Speed. Anything up on that side, Brian?
No change.
We're in a holding pattern. Cool.
We're still buried in other module issues at the moment.
We need two Brians by the sounds of things.
Is Go List slower than it should be, or just slower than we would like it to be?
That remains an open question. I think GoList-E can be made somewhat faster, depending on what the output format is. It's not obvious to me whether GoList without -E can be made significantly faster or not.
Russ implied that nobody's ever really bothered to make GoList fast because it wasn't necessary before, and that there was plenty of elbow room in there. But I've heard nothing more about whether that was just an idle comment or a specific knowledge.
in my experience, when Russ makes comments like that, he's usually correct.
Yes.
But on the other hand, also in my experience, sometimes when Russ feels that an optimization is straightforward to do, he means straightforward for Russ to do.
But by the way, what is go list minus E? I don't see that flag on go list.
Include errors in the structured output.
Okay, it doesn't seem
Right. So it includes errors in the structured output, but importantly, it also does not cause the tool to fail in case there are errors. So if you do go list minus E and also specify a format string that ignores the errors that are produced, then we could potentially skip a whole bunch of validation because you don't care about it anyway. It's not going to be visible.
Got it. Yeah, it's not mentioned in the summary. I'd forgotten about it.
Hey, Romeo.
In the Go plugin for VS Code, there are a couple of scenarios where I do run go list. As an offline item, I'd like to sync up with anyone who's interested to just review those things to see if I'm doing some really dumb mistakes and causing more worse performance than what we already have. Because I just added another go list call to figure out the absolute path of the package given an import path, because I need to map everything back to a file. So I think with that, there's at least 3 places where I'm calling go list. So I would be grateful if anybody can review the code with me offline.
Cool. Whether you want to make that an issue within VS Code and then just link it from golang-tools, or just email golang-tools, that'll just enable everybody to subscribe to it, I guess. A good way to just notify. Excellent. That's go list speeds done and dusted. Anything on the Rebecca, Ian, on the language server side of things? Hey, Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I guess there's not like any like pressing updates, like still doing some like Go packages related stuff before I get like too much further with it. But like eventually we'll have like a bit like a first release for it, I guess, and we can try it out with VS Code or something. But that's like probably still a bit down the line.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. Hey, Ramya.
Is there any update on Matthew Dembski's fork of Go code on who is doing what there, or is it still a stalemate as far as that's concerned?
So I think that we're like gonna maintain it, I guess, or like maybe Matt will do something with it too. But yeah, for now it's kind of like our plan is to like have Matt Dembski's fork, and then if you want to use Go modules, my fork, and then if like once the LSP basically comes out, we'll have that would be like the main source of auto completion. So that's pretty much the plan. I don't think we're gonna have like a situation where we move, like we don't want to move Go code around any more than we already have. So
yeah, I get the LSP plan being the long-term plan, but for the short term, for the for the current month and the next month, there are a couple of open issues in sorry, what's his name?
Matthew Dembski.
Matthew Dembski. In his fork, there are some open issues. There are some open PRs related to performances, related to completion of external packages. So I was just curious that if those can be taken to a conclusion, we could say that no new work will be done there, and the future would be LSP. But there are some open questions there which people are stuck on.
Okay, so I can take a look at those and like basically just take on ownership of that one too. I think because if he probably like he's not on the Go team anymore, so I think like that's pretty much our fork now. So
yes.
Yeah, we can maintain it and like look at it and potentially try to keep it in sync with the Go modules fork just to make sure.
Even if not all the issues, I mean, we don't have to look at all the issues in that fork. If it's just like a couple of 2 or 3 hot things that are really hot, if those could be taken care of, that would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I had seen a few, but I thought that they were all kind of like related to like Go modules or like caching stuff or whatever. So, and I felt like that was probably maybe not like super necessary at this point, but yeah, I can definitely take a look at what's there and then try to.
Oh yeah, I think these are like not modules related at all. It's just Go code.
So Ramya, Rebecca, if you're happy, just sort of following up on that one offline, just anybody who then. So Rebecca, just so I'm clear, the idea is not to merge the module stuff back into Matt Dembski's fork at the moment, presumably because of speed.
Yeah.
For now, just keeping it separate until such a time, and maybe by that time, actually, we've got a first version of the LSP that's come along.
Yeah, pretty much that's the idea. I think it's like Go packages is slow enough and like has
order. Has everybody else lost them?
Yep. Something about that room, I think.
They are dialing in from Google, right? They're not a coffee shop.
Maybe a coffee shop in Google.
No, that doesn't look like the New York coffee shop.
I was going to say they need a repaint if it is. Hey, Ian.
You're muted.
Hello.
Hello
You
again.
back?
Yeah, we are. We lost Rebecca at the point where you were talking about and Go packages, and then there was about 20, 30 seconds of after that. If you can remember what that was.
yeah, so I was just saying that we're gonna keep Go code like separate for Go mod, like the one that runs on Go packages. We'll stay that one for like a while until we kind of iron out the bugs with the speed especially, and then ideally at that point there will be the LSP auto completion, so that'll like kind of hopefully just because it's just like the speed is too slow for people who aren't using modules.
Yep.
Like, not one, but yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Cool, thank you very much. Just briefly on the LSP side of things, Ramya, presumably with VS Code, we get the LSP integration for free-ish.
Well, I'll have to add in another configuration to, for people to choose between SourceGraph and Google.
Got it.
And then, yeah, free-ish.
Freer than Vim, at least. Where we'll need some plugin that understands LSP. Perhaps I'm just getting ahead of myself here a bit, is that, and maybe there's already thought along these lines, Rebecca, about what sort of plugin each editor should use to talk to the LSP server. Is sort of in scope for your work?
I don't think that would, so I can take that. So I don't think that needs to be in the scope of whoever works on the language server. That's more of an editor's side of things. If an editor supports LSP, it should be a no-brainer and like 1 day's worth of work for the editor, author, owner, team to take care of it. For example, I think Atom and VS Code shouldn't have any issues onboarding any language servers at the moment. Vim might take more, because as far as I know, that does not support LSP at the moment.
Yeah, I think with VS Code, like I've been testing with VS Code, and it's pretty much a matter of I can get it to work very easily with VS Code. Like it pretty much works out of the box. So I think
that's great. But just to confirm on my question there, it's not in scope for your work that you would, for example, let's just take Vim, where it's sort of unclear whether it works or not. You're not going to be writing a plugin for Vim that does the language server integration, or are you?
I guess we haven't really thought about it much, so I don't think our plan was to maybe have tests for some of the editors that do, but yeah, basically we're not gonna do that's on the editor to support the language server. We're gonna
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't volunteer for that if I were you, because writing Vim script is not something that anybody would choose to do, I don't think.
Yeah, we'll work with the person who's doing it, but we won't write the thing from scratch.
I think as Rami said, it should just work for the most part, and it's the editor integrator's sort of responsibility to do that.
Yeah, I think the conclusion for me would be we want to own the LSP. We may help out with editor integrations, but we don't want to own any of them.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I was really just asking for the sake of transparency more than anything, so that it's clear at the end of this call where the boundaries lie, so that then Fatih and others on the Vim side of things can think, right, actually, we've got this. It's worth us starting to do some groundwork here, preparing for LSP integration, because guess what? It's not native to Vim, and whether the Golang guys, whether they want to be using LSP in any way, shape or form, again, just being clear where the boundaries lie. It sort of made sense. What you're saying makes total sense. It's just for the sake of clarity. Nothing else. Cool. I think anything else on the language server? Don't think so. Roger, anything to talk about on as far as GoHack is concerned? Any updates you wanted to give there?
Yes, I've had a little bit of time recently to spend. I had a couple of days off ill, which were great for getting a bit of hacking done. And yeah, so I've fixed a load of a few bugs. There are still a couple of bugs. I changed the interface. I don't know whether anyone's actually using it or anything.
Yep.
But I changed the command line interface, so it has subcommands now. So you do gohack get and gohack undo rather than gohack module name and gohack -u, and you've got gohack status as well. And one of the things I did, which took a while, was I wanted it to actually have some tests. And so Daniel suggested actually that the way that the Go command did tests was quite nice. So with the script stuff, so I factored all that out from the Go internal standard library. So I actually made a repo for it. So it's called Roger Pepe Go internal, Go-internal, which has so as one of the other features I added to GoHack was the ability to, if you GoHack a module and you already have a replace statement for a module, then previously it would just overwrite that. Actually, it wouldn't overwrite it; it would refuse to do it. But now it actually saves that. Remembers that in a comment at the end of the replace statement, and when you undo it, it pushes that back to how it was before. In order to do that, I needed to be able to parse modules, go.mod files that had comments in, so I could preserve the comments. So for that, I needed the internal Go module parsers. So that was that. All those packages I gratuitously hacked out of Go root and put into that module. And yeah, the test script stuff is also there, and it has its own package and is potentially quite useful for anything that tests. If you're wanting to test a main program, that's quite a nice way of doing it. Mm-hmm. I also one of the interesting things that's possibly relevant for this Go tool stuff is so the way that the Go command tests work is they run it as a separate binary. So it's starting the binary and stopping it every time, and that's quite nice because you don't have your side effects. So if you can still have global variables and that sort of thing that are set up just for that run. But one thing you lose is coverage information. So you've got all these tests, but you don't know what your coverage is, and I find coverage information incredibly useful for driving what tests to write, and where particularly I'm missing coverage. So I actually managed just about to hack that into the test script package. So you do actually get coverage information, but it's a horrible hack, and it would be great to be able to have that slightly better integrated. So perhaps as a test, you were able to say, look, please, here's some more coverage information for your consideration. Please integrate this in, or something like that. Because it does work, but it's stretching the limits of Hiram's law, I'd say, in terms of what things it depends on.
Just a quick question related to the sort of hacking out of the stuff from the Go internal package. Brian, presumably there's no plan current, well, that I said presumably. I'll ask it as a question instead. Is there any plan to make that more generally available, or is it still envisaged that will, for now, stay within Go internal?
The script support or module parse, like which parts?
I think particularly the module parsing is one that's really useful if you want to be able to parse a module and edit it, and without using the go mod edit subcommand.
Yeah, I don't think we have any plans to factor out anything supported for that. Please do file issues for any gaps that you can't do through Go mod edit.
I mean, this particular one, I don't know how I would make it. I mean, the particular one, I want to see the comment, and I want to, parse it and replace it with, with some. So basically, do a Go mod replace while adding the comment at the same time. I don't really see that. That's a very niche use case, I'd say, but
maybe.
Cool. Okay, so there may be something that we can. Any more learnings, Roger, that come out of the Go hack stuff, and particularly with that test stuff, maybe issues come out of that that we can raise for Brian's attention. Cool. Marwin, you had a question.
I've noticed other people, and I myself have also extracted the internal mod file parser, and the other one I want to mention is the semver package, also from inside the Go tool, because it's not, how Go modules define semver is slightly different from how other packages like the mastermind semver, they're slightly different in certain cases. And so I just wanted to point that out, that these, the way Go looks at semver might be potentially useful to expose for people to talk in the same semver spec that Go defines.
Sounds like we should get issues for both of those then, created it. Mo and Roger, if you don't mind doing that, else I can sort of sweep it up as part of the notes that I do after the call.
I factored that out as well. There's a bunch of, basically all of those,
I also have the question I wanted to ask earlier kind of relates to Go hack, and it's a question for Ramya, but I think the Go team and everyone here might actually have very valid input. Right now, if you're in the module system, let's say on VS Code, which I've been playing with in the last couple of days, if I want to go to definition, it goes properly to the mod file inside gopath/package/mod/cache, et cetera, et cetera. But let's say for that same module project, I want to instead go to definition to the vendor because I use gomod-vendor, right? So would it be possible? Would it make sense for tools like VS Code and other editors to just have a flag on the UI to say, like, when I want to go to definition, just click it and then it'll go to vendor, or it'll go to the actual, global FS cache or whatever you want to call it, the mount cache. So like something where you could toggle quickly between go to definition to your local vendor or to the system cache. Does that make sense? Like for Ramya and maybe the Go team to have an input on that.
Why would we want that choice? So as far as I understand vendoring, even in the old vendoring system, when you have vendor dependencies, you always want to look at your vendor dependency, and you wouldn't and you shouldn't care about the global version of the said package. Shouldn't the same thing apply when you're using modules and vendors?
So when I use modules, when I'm in the module system, I still vendor things because I avoid the Go hack, because it's much easier to edit things quickly instead of running the Go hack tool. Because like it depends on people's workflow. Mine is really quick in terms of that I constantly go to different repositories in my dependencies and change code and put thumb to print line there. And so having to constantly do the Go hack is a big slowdown, at least for my use case. So that's why I like to have the vendor even when I'm still in the module system for now. And so going to these, doing go to def and stuff like that, even if I'm in the module system, sometimes I just want to go to the vendor folder and change it.
Marwan, we're running about 5 minutes over, and I know that Ian and folks have got another call meeting to go to. Can I? That does very much relate to a thread that I brought up in the golang-tools list, and that's where editors may or will have to specify goo, scorch, and build tags as well in order to drive tools like Go Code, etc. And GoDef falls into exactly the same bucket there as well. So having some sort of UI control or something where that context is automatically discovered or whatever, right, I think falls under the same bracket of that. So perhaps we can pick up the conversation, sorry to cut you off, in that thread as well.
Put a link in the chat, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. Daniel, you had your hand up. Anything you wanted to quickly check in before we wrap up? Because then we can allow others to go.
I was going to ask, when Brian was saying that there was no plan to expose internal parts like the mod file parser, I seem to remember that Russ said that would be a package available to everybody back in the Vigo draft like 6 months ago. But maybe I don't remember that correctly. But I cannot find an issue for that right now.
Fine, so maybe we could just discuss that via the issue then, because it doesn't sound like there can be really, well, I don't want to speak for Russ or Brian, but it sounds like it would be a sensible thing if there are needs to actually parse it beyond just the Go tool itself. But we can. I guess that can all be covered in the issue. We don't need to conclude anything here. Cool. Sorry, if there's anything anybody else wants to raise, perhaps let's just do that via the mailing list and/or just a follow up to the notes. Sorry to cut things short now, but and sorry for running over Ian and co with your meeting that follows. I'll put a recording and notes online as I did last time. Any feedback or anything, if we think a sort of slightly different format works for next time, please just shout.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.